Solo Leveling the anime will probably be mid. And here are 2 reasons why. If you're not familiar with Solo Leveling, or manhwa in general, Solo Leveling is a manhwa and novel written by Chu Gong and illustrated by Dubu of Readeye Studio. The story centers around the concept of hunters, superpowered humans who have been tasked with the goal of saving humanity from annihilation via monster invasion. The audience follows a notoriously weak hunter named Sun Jin-woo, who finds himself on the brink of death over and over again. However, after narrowly surviving a grueling expedition where most of his party members perish, he is granted an overpowered blessing from the system that allows him to level up in strength and turn any monster he defeats into his minions. Now, off that plot alone, any unbiased Solo Leveling fan will realize that the story is nothing special. If I were to quickly describe Solo Leveling in 1 sentence, it really is just a story about an overpowered MC that kind of just beats everything in his path to get to his goal. You can kind of compare the Solo Leveling manhwa to your typical shonen battle anime, but I would argue that the Solo Leveling story lacks a lot more depth and meaning than its counterparts. As the story begins to move along, you begin to realize that the story, plot development, and world building isn't really anything to be impressed by at all. Our main character, Sun Jin-woo, rarely faces any sort of adversity or challenge that I believe he would actually falter to, except for, of course, the start and end of the series. Other than the fact that our main character is reminiscent of OG Young Sasuke and OG Kirito, and the fact that our surrounding characters are boring as hell, everything surrounding the story of Solo Leveling is incredibly generic. And honestly, realistically, the only thing I could say that's unique about Solo Leveling is the fact that it popularized the ever so growing hunter genre, but that's probably about it. So in other words, the story's mid. But what people don't realize is that no one really watches or reads Solo Leveling for the story, but rather they kind of just read it for the incredible art, high-octane action, and just the amazing character designs. Now with that fact in mind, this is where Solo Leveling the anime's greatest issue makes itself known. Solo Leveling the anime will be produced and animated by A1 Pictures. Now, A1 Pictures is not a bad studio per se, actually quite the opposite, seeing how A1 Pictures is one of the biggest and most well-established studios in the industry at the moment, with some of the biggest titles you can think of that you can see showing up on the screen right now. However, I wouldn't ever describe A1 Pictures as a studio that heavily focuses on animation and high-detailed animation in specific. Like, we're not talking about UFO Table or MAPPA, for example. Considering the fact that A1 Pictures is not great with animation, I would describe them unironically as mid in terms of animation. This could be an issue as Solo Leveling focuses so heavily on the art of the show in this case. Like, I'm sure the Solo Leveling fans are probably expecting something along the lines of a Chainsaw Man, a Demon Slayer, or a Mob Psycho in terms of quality, but they're probably going to get something more on the lines of a Seven Deadly Sins, a Sword Art Online, or a Fairy Tail. The anime that I just listed is probably the best comparison to what we could expect of Solo Leveling, seeing how I personally believe this is probably the best action anime that A1 Pictures have probably released thus far, in terms of animation at least. Now, while the animation of a Sword Art Online, a Seven Deadly Sins, and a Fairy Tail is actually pretty good, is it enough to carry the lackluster story of Solo Leveling? And I think the easy answer is no. Now, while I'm already pretty low on the Solo Leveling adaptation before it even released, or a trailer even dropped, there are some background information that gives me a little bit of hope that the adaptation will actually be kinda decent. The director, Shunsuke Nagashige, I hope I said that correctly, has worked on some incredibly well-produced anime in the past. We're talking about Attack on Titan, Re:Zero, and Chainsaw Man, just to name a few. Now, I'm not gonna over-exaggerate and say that he literally created or directed all of these great anime productions, and the fact that the only one he's actually directed is this, and that kind of concerns me. We at least know that he has some experience in creating great action animation, which can bode pretty well for an action show like Solo Leveling. And with that, I just want to preface once again that I'm actually an enjoyer of the Solo Leveling manhwa. However, I won't be blinded by my fandom to not realize that A1 Pictures has to animate something like this without ever having any sort of experience consistently animating something at this level. I feel like we can expect some CGI and some really high highs in terms of animation and really low lows in terms of animation as well. Something similar to the Blue Lock anime adaptation, in my opinion at least. Now, with all of that being said, I am excited to see the first Solo Leveling official trailer, and I would gladly eat my words if it looks incredible and if the anime itself is incredible. But until then, subscribe, like if you liked the video, and I'll see you in the next one.